here we are. What are we doing? You know, every once in a while I go through a thing on eBay. I'm like an eBay junkie. I try not to spend much time on there. I don't really need anything, but I can't help myself. And I picked up this Woodman's Pal leather tote. Go on their website. They're like $200, $300. They could be $300. I got this thing for $41, and it was used a little bit. It's in great condition, but I went ahead and I also picked up, which I needed for my leather stacked handles and everything, other leather things, 100% neat's foot oil. That's what I used on the handles for the D-handled Woodman's Pal knives. I'm going to use it on this bag in a little bit. I don't think I'll do that on video for you. It doesn't matter. We are going to unbox the Ontario Knife Company's modern version of the Marine Raider Bowie. And this is a thing. I'm into Bowies. And the history of the Bowie knife is really interesting. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm not the ultimate expert or anything on that. But I want to get into... excuse me. I just rolled out of bed and I haven't spoken to anybody yet. Bags under my eyes and everything else. So the deal here is what I'm seeing in the modern knife world. What's happening is everybody wants a full 1/4 inch thick, full tang, indestructible blade that a tank could drive over and you could still use it. The thing is, the original Bowies that the military actually implemented, which I find fascinating, by the way, because the originals, like if you look at World War II, the Collins, I think it's Collins Legitimus, they made a Marine Raider Bowie, and that thing is badass. I really would love to own one of those, but they're astronomically expensive. One may fall into my lap one day. And then Case makes, in the 80s, I think it was, Case was making these knives, the Jim Bowie. And that guy looks more like Davy Crockett on the blade, actually on the blade with a knife. And it has Case XX, and it's very similar to the Collins Marine Raider Bowie. And if you want that, $170, $200. The issue is a lot of them are in cases or they're in a box, and you always then that's just a box sitting there. I actually want to use it. I'd rather find a deal for under $100 on one that was used, and then actually use it myself. That gets me to, let's see what we have in our, I'm like, Felix the cat, it's my bag of tricks here. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Oh wow, there's actually stuff in here I forgot about. We'll talk about this too. But these are all the things that I have in here, but I want to get to, you guys know my favorite right there. I love that thing. This is your Western Bowie. I'm going to get to that in a second here. Let's just get all this stuff out of here. And I've got some funny things in here you guys will get a kick out of. Now, this right here, this Bowie here was made from, I don't know, like 64 to 67. From what I saw, it's more like a 66, 67, based upon the markings on the blade itself, the 3 small pins, that sort of thing. This is a Vietnam era Western Bowie. I was going down the rabbit hole on this last night, reading some older forums from 10, 15 years ago, where people are talking about these things. The numbers on these right now, even on eBay, for the 1970s versions, which are easily noted by when you look at the handle. First of all, it's not as beat up as this one, but it's at this point down to the crossguard, it's a machined bevel. So like just looking, you don't have to look at any other marks, you'll see that and you go, oh, that's a 1970s Western Bowie. But for those, people want $200 or more. I've seen these things listed for $500. It's crazy. What I wanted to point out is the thickness of the spine. It's a little over 1/8 of an inch thick just by looking at it and not measuring it. When I look at pictures of the Collins Raider Bowie that the Marines used in World War II, it looks about the same. It could be slightly thicker, but it certainly isn't 1/4 of an inch thick. That gets me to this, which is the original World War II USMC Bolo You guys know the story. I've done videos on it before. I don't want to argue with anybody. There's one guy in particular. He goes to all the videos. He's like, it was always made for the Marines. That's why it says USMC. They wouldn't have put USMC on anything unless it was for the Marine Corps. All the stories I've read, and there's a lot of information out there, was that these were originally issued just to the medical corps, corpsmen. Marines were taking them, stealing them, because they were great for clearing fields of fire. And then the Marine Corps recognized that and then ordered huge numbers of these to issue to machine gun crews, Marine machine gun crews. That's the story. That's what sounds right to me. That's what I'm sticking with. I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I do know from talking to guys who were there is things like this, they never broke one of these things with just this thinner spine. This knife here is an all-around good knife. It's a great survival knife. The shape of a Bowie, it's designed, you can chop with this thing. You know, you want to kind of grab it back here, clip your finger in here, you know, this sort of thing, and for really chopping with it. But it's light enough, you can use it as a machete, and obviously it's a great fighting knife, right? So that's good. This thing here, 1/4 inch thick steel, this thing weighs like 2 pounds. You are not fighting with this thing. And I mean, you could. The blade I have that I've modified to the point where it is significantly lighter now. It's still essentially the same size. I mean, it's a little bit smaller, but it's a lot lighter. And I modified the handle, as you guys know already, to be way more ergonomic and comfortable. And that's great. But again, you can literally throw your shoulder out with this thing. And I can tell you this, from going for years of looking for vintage military gear, clothing in particular, herringbone twill, like this cap I'm wearing right now, they were little guys. Especially if you're 18 to 24 years old, which is about the normal age range. You're tiny at that point. You may grow up to be a guy over 200 pounds where you need a larger size. But when you go looking for original vintage uniforms, it's, for a guy like me, it's very hard for me to find something from that era that actually fits me. It's almost non-existent. I always call it, you know, man sizes. It's hard to find. So those were smaller people. Wielding something like this makes no sense. This is what is this for? It's a camp knife, man. Right? It's for clearing shrubs, small trees, making litters. A litter is 2 branches, 1.5 to 2 inches thick or so, in that range. You put some, your blouse, they call it, your shirt or a blanket, whatever. You wrap that through, boom. 2 to 4 guys can carry an injured person by making a litter. You can dig with this because it's got a nice broad front end on it. That's what the Woodman's Pal is designed to do as well. This is probably better than this if you had to swing it all day. Let's just be honest, right? Get a little history here even before I get to this. I just like having this out here, this thing. You guys know this tickles me. I can't help it. We'll keep it right here to the side so you can keep staring at it. We'll put this one over here and you guys can see it. So here we are. The Marine Raider Bowie. Did I need this thing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I've been staring at it. It's only like $70 or less with shipping. And I thought, one thing I know is you could look at something for a while, for years, and forget about it. And 10 years could go by. And then you decide that you want it or you need it for some reason. And now they don't make it anymore. And the price on it has gone through the roof. So I figured, let me just get it now while it's cheap. That's what we're going to do. Look at the thickness of that spine. I got to tell you, while this is significantly heavier than this, I mean, there's no doubt about it, it still feels great, and it's nowhere near as heavy as this thing. Part of that is, I mean, they kept the 1/4 inch thick spine all through here, but then from that point at the clip, it thins nicely. And also, you can see the bevel on this. It's only thick just to this point, and then there's an extreme bevel to it. I'm not crazy about the coating. I suppose it's not bad because you know, keep it from rusting. This is, I believe this is 1075. Oh, I forgot, sorry. Probably says it in here somewhere on something. I don't know. Some people are taking the coating off of this, and that's something I would consider doing. The leather craft thing is coming with sheaths. I need to make them, and I'm going to want to make a cool leather sheath for this because it comes with this thing. It comes with this little lace. I guess this is for the lanyard. There's a little brass ring here. These are full tang. They are just covered with this rubber-like material. It's very comfortable in the grip. You can still change your grip here. It's not as comfortable as the wood. The wood is nicely rounded, and you can always reshape that to make it comfortable for you. If you're chopping with something like this for quite some time, it's very common to get a hot spot here in your hand. A pair of gloves is always good to have. Have a pair of gloves in your kit. But back to this SP10 Raider Bowie. You can actually peel this rubber away from the crossguard. That's not the end of the world. It's not like that's going to get in your way. This thing here looks like it's ambidextrous. So it'll fit in either way if you're a lefty, yeah, whatever. 2 points of retention, that's nice. It's always nice to have 2 points of retention. And let's see here, that doesn't open. There's a loop here that's not going to get you a very big, can't go through a very thick belt there. Kind of the same thing here, but it's a little bit better. And it's got a molly situation going on here. You guys know how that works. So if you wanted to strap that to the side of a pack or something, you know, it's better than some nylon sheaths I've seen, but it's still a nylon sheath. This is probably going to live in a box for a long time before I do much with it. But the plan is to start taking these things out into the woods and chopping some wood with these things to really let you know firsthand. You'll be able to watch it. The idea is going to be count how many chops it takes to get through this piece of wood. I might just get a 4x4 and do that. Maybe not even have to go to the woods. I can do that right here in the shop. But I just wanted to show you guys this thing. Give you some close-ups of this. This is your original Western. Now, there was a knife like this in World War II, I believe, but most of these were made in the 1960s, early 60s. You can see the spine thickness difference here. And this crossguard, if you don't understand what this is really for, it's literally for knife fighting. One blade comes down on another blade, and you know I don't know how often you're ever really going to have to deal with this. It's highly unlikely you are going to get in a knife fight with a Bowie knife. However, if a blade comes down, you hit, comes down, boom, it's going to hit that crossguard and not destroy your hand. Keep fighting. That's all that is. You'll see that most of the Bowies that are designed and intended to be used as a camp knife, they don't have that. And a lot of people have modified these where they'll at least cut this part of the crossguard off and round that over. I like this because it's unmolested. And there's enough room, barely, right here. You'd have to be careful for you to wrap your finger. And that's important for using this for close work, making shavings, to start a fire, that sort of thing. The Ontario, the modern Marine Raider Bowie, has a bigger area here to wrap, to put your finger through there. I like that. This is uncomfortable. I'll tell you right now. For my thumb on that crossguard, if I wanted to do close-up work here, that's definitely going to be an issue. Now, if this was my only blade, by the way, a Bowie is a great blade to select. You can do everything with it. You can even drill holes with the tip. I don't have to do a, destruction video on this knife. If you want to see this knife get destroyed, get on YouTube and watch people break them, because you can break anything if you try hard enough, which is silly, the things I see people go through with these knives. It's for the channel, for the views, I get it. Okay. If this was my blade, it was the only blade I had, what would I do to this to modify it? I would take a file at the underside of this right here, probably all the way around, and I'd round that over and make that smoother so I could use it here and not get any hot spots or give myself a blister here. And I'd consider hitting this on a belt sander or something, and just rounding this hard corner over a little bit if it's possible. That brass grommet could be an issue, but it looks like it's brass to me, so that'll shape as well if you need to. Anyhow, I just thought that was kind of cool. Kind of cool. We'll see our classic Bowie blade shape here. Now, the beauty of the shape is that because you have this kind of belly created here, it makes it slightly forward heavy, and it just makes for a great chopper. I don't know, man. I just think a Bowie is one of your best camp knives. As a matter of fact, I've looked at the case knives, the later version of the case. I mentioned it earlier. It's kind of like their copy of the Collins Legitimus from World War II. It's got a straight guard with little balls on the end of it in brass. They look like bone handles. On the box, it's literally called the Case Bowie Survival Knife. I mean, this is the style of knife like a mountain man would have loved to have had. Now, I'm going to stop the camera here really quick because I want to insert a couple pictures of what probably Jim Bowie actually had. Okay, so what you'll notice there is it's kind of like a big old butcher knife that doesn't have a cross guard on it. And I think that one had the coffin handle. That's a later version of an interpretation of it. If you read the accounts of the whole reason we have this Bowie knife thing, is this guy Jim Bowie was got in this fight. I forget where it was like this little marshy kind of island area where people would go to have duels, and he ended up with multiple attackers, and he took his knife out and dispatched these dudes, and he survived. I think he had gunshots and knife wounds and everything else himself, and it was described as a butcher knife. And at the time, and they still have them today, butcher knife's got a nice long blade to it. It typically has a little bit of a belly in the front. Some of them have a little bit of a clip point, and no cross guard, and a decent wood handle on it. A lot of them are full tang. There's a lot of stories about what happened after that, if some blacksmith hit him up and helped him work with and design his own version of the knife, but that's probably what happened. And later, whether or not it even had a cross guard, we don't know. But I wanted to show that picture because I think that's probably more historically accurate. The cross guard makes sense for knife fighting. And you have to remember, man, Jim Bowie was, I mean, he was killed at the Alamo, and I forget what the dates were there, but that was well before the Civil War, like 1830 to 1850 in that area. And back at that time, we're still using flintlocks. Percussion, I think percussion caps were happening at that time. But the point is, it's one shot, right? Even with pistols, it's one shot. Pistols are designed, especially the single-action army that came later, so that when you run out of ammo, you grab the barrel and you use the handle as a weapon. So they were using a blade. It's a shot, you're getting overwhelmed, you're pulling your knife, and you're literally fighting for your life with a blade. It's interesting to me that the Bowie knife became this. It's a very practical, good design. But when you think about the fact that the U.S. military decided to issue some blades that looked like this, in particular the Collins Legitimus, that's wild, man. To me, that's wild. Because they could have done something more utilitarian. It didn't have to have this super thick spine. But this, to me, makes sense. This makes sense to me as a government issue military knife. Now, again, not the thickness and the weight of it. Makes no sense for combat. You can't really fight with this thing. You swing this thing, it takes too long to recover. Right? I mean, if you were practicing, by the way, you're going to overdevelop just one side of your body with this thing. So, I don't know. But it's not designed as a combat blade. But they could have done a blade in this fashion without a cross guard. So it's interesting. And I really think psychologically, in a combat situation, visuals are a thing. And in the Marine Corps, they always trained us with this. That scene that you see in Full Metal Jacket, you know, let me hear your war cry. They really drill that into you. Like that's your thing. And somebody running at you, fierce and angry, screaming, is unsettling. Now, imagine somebody's running at you, intensely screaming at you with one of these things in his hand. You've just defeated your enemy psychologically before you even got close enough to actually, delete him. So I wonder sometimes if that's part of the reason why they issued that thing. Anyhow, this is just kind of some of my thing, and with this Bowie idea, and this is just one of those silly things I felt like I needed to have. The idea really is they're all going to end up being parts of little kits, and then who knows what I end up doing with them down the road. But maybe do some caches out there somewhere. I don't know. But I thought this was cool, and I just love the shape of it, and they really nailed it with this thing. Look, I'm not going to knock this knife. Watch the videos on it. It's a heavy-duty thing it'll last you the rest of your life. If you need one decent survival knife to do almost everything, you can't go wrong with this. By the way, if you have a heavier, larger blade, but you also have a small, short blade, then that's the blade you're going to use probably more to skin an animal or do craft work, bushcraft work, and all that sort of thing. But all that can also be accomplished with this. So it's your brain is the more important thing here, not necessarily the tool. Yeah. So I just love doing that. I can't help it. I'm going to put this away, and I think that'll be the end of this video, but I'm going to do another short here on something else, a couple other things you guys will get a kick out of. So stick around, watch those. Thanks to everybody who's been watching the videos. I had a couple comments on even this from people who are not into this stuff, and they have all been appreciative of the knowledge and what's going on in my brain, which thanks, because even I don't know what the heck's going on in here sometimes. This thickness of blade right here is fine, okay? For everything you're going to do in the woods or survival or a combat situation, you're not. I don't know a story. Tell me if you know of a story where in Vietnam or later somebody had one of these Western Bowies and was using it for a camp task or in a combat situation, and somehow this knife failed on you. Show me that, because I just don't see that happening. And the idea that we went from that, which is light enough to wield and wield quickly, and literally it's so light I can use this to chop vines in front of me getting through a jungle situation, or chop wood and limbs in a camp situation, and start a hole and carve out to do a bow drill, whatever it is. This knife will do it all. I don't see you really breaking this thing unless you're trying to break it. The fact that now everybody has to make a knife that's a 1/4 inch thick is bizarre to me. I think it's cool. I just love a big honking America. You know. Wait a second. Let's get a thumbnail. That's how I get my thumbnails. They're from the video screen. Thanks for going along with that. Did you just all run away now? So, by the way, if you do this a bunch of times and you snap a tip off your blade, that's a crappy blade. Heat treatment was wrong, all that. These are all quality. I'm not going to have any problems doing this. So I'm just saying, I mean, I think this is cool, but it's significantly heavier, and there's a slight uncomfortable nature to the end of this handle. Again, you want to hold it back here, and you want to kind of flick it if you're chopping. You want to choke up on it if you're doing close work. I've already described how this is uncomfortable with this particular knife. You'd want to modify this a little bit if you're really going to use it in a real setting. This Western blade, that's way more comfortable. And I have not hit this. Now look, I got to tell you, when you see the prices that these things are going for on eBay, it's pretty crazy. As I was doing my research on the forums, I learned that the original knives that probably saw action in or use in Vietnam you can't find one with an original sheath because those leather sheaths rotted away in the jungle. This knife did not come with a sheath. And it had a bit of pitting on it. It definitely shows signs of use. Had some old rust on the tip here, and had been sharpened. I'm still working on that, working on this edge. I've been playing with that a little bit. And this brass looks nice to you because I've cleaned it up. I took some 4/0 steel wool. It had some corrosion in here, which is typical, that green color you'll get. So I cleaned all that up, polished the blade with some steel wool, cleaned up the handle as well. You can see some separation in here. That's a shrinkage of the wood. You know, that's something you would see if it was in a jungle environment and then came back and dried out more. So I mean, I can't prove this. It came with no provenance. You can see the spine. There's some pitting along the spine here. I don't know what you can see on camera. I apologize. But I think that there's a pretty good chance that this could have seen or been over there in Vietnam during the war. It's certainly the era, and it has the use. And it could just be that it was a knife that somebody had and actually just used. Either or. I'm pretty stoked with this. And I got this knife for, I think it was $70. I'm kind of amazed by that when you think about what these things, because they want hundreds of dollars for this knife. There's a weird thing. I don't know if it's purposeful. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but the distance from this wood scale compared to the brass overhang on this side is shorter than this side. This side hangs over a little bit more. The bevel on the blade looks real nice. Everything's straight. And, you know, when you think about that, my thumb is on this side. I don't know if they do that on purpose so it's easier to choke up and do your close work. It could be that that was purposefully done. That might be a detail that if you're an aficionado of Bowies, and in particular the Western W49, you might know more about that than I do. You probably do. I don't even know if my face is in screen right here. I apologize. I want to quickly talk about, real fast, just add it to this video. It's going to be a very long video. I don't know if I should apologize for that or not. But when you are looking at knives online, and there's a picture, and if there's nothing else in the picture with the blade, you don't understand scale. So if you're going to sell something online, what you want to do is you want to put something that you understand the scale of, right? Here's a $5 bill. So you want to have a picture of a bill. I believe these are all 6 inches long. You want to have a picture of the knife with a dollar bill or something in the picture, so people could see the size comparison. Why am I bringing this up? Well, you might have saw that short I did with that survival knife and the leather sheath. It looked really well made, and it is all made of real steel and everything. And then I put my hand on it, and it's only like this long. That's because it was late night. I probably had a couple drinks in me. I bought that years and years ago, and it was cheap. I couldn't understand why it was so cheap. And when I opened that package, I just laughed at myself for being dumb. But I was also like slightly upset because when in all the pictures, there was nothing in those pictures for scale. Why am I bringing this up? Well, there was this girl, I didn't know her very well. I met her when I was riding with a particular motorcycle group, and they had a clubhouse, and we saw hang out. It was the best bar in LA, man. We had a lot of fun there. And she and I were friends via social media. And she was at a thrift store somewhere in California. And she started texting with me. She said, "Hey, I found this knife. I think you might be interested in it." And it was the brass knuckle knife from the trench knife, the 1918 trench knife from World War I. They were made towards the end of the war. Not too many actually saw action in World War I. The military had these things in a warehouse. When World War II broke out, boom, they got issued. A lot of them got issued to Marines, in particular Marine Raiders. The original design had more of a square spike nut on the pommel, and she showed me the pictures. It says 1918. It didn't have all the script it typically has, but it looked aged. It had the square pommel on it, and it was inexpensive. I think it was, well, it was inexpensive if it was the real thing, okay? And she's sending me these pictures, and there's nothing else in the picture. You already know where I'm going. You already know where I'm going with this. I think I sent her $50 to get this silly thing. Here's the thing. This is real. I've actually put a little bit of an edge on it. It's a great little letter opener. You can see right on the handle it says 1918. It's got the more square nut on the pommel here. It's pretty cool looking. It sits on a shelf. But this is ridiculous. By the way, if you've got a child that's like 4 years old or something, I need to dress him up as like a combat Marine from World War II and have him hold this thing. It's like don't, if you... what is this, man? It's a really neat letter opener. That's what I use it for. That's what this is now. But I'm just saying, don't buy anything if all you see is a picture of it when it comes to the knives, unless there's something else in the picture to show you scale and how big it actually is. All right, you know what? That's it for now. You guys have a great day. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to be really kind to one another. Come back often. Tell your friends.